The topic that I've chosen to research is the right-wing political movement, the Tea Party. The Tea Party movement ideology is rooted in wanting a small, fiscally conservative government maintaining very traditional libertarian views. Why I'm interested. Witnessing the 2016 election of Donald Trump, to me, perfectly displayed just how polarized politically the United States is currently. Seeing the rise of candidates like Bernie Sanders and far-right ideals have become quite prevalent in society today. The visual in the right-hand corner is U of T professor and now best-selling author Jordan B. Peterson. Dr. Peterson struck fame in a hotly contested debate over pronouns and free speech on campus, and is another relevant example to the divergence of political views seen today. I find the political polarization of the United States fascinating, and I want to try to understand its workings at a deeper level. I believe researching the Tea Party movement perfectly exemplifies the radical division of politics in America and will provide insight into the political polarization ongoing. Research question. The research question I have created is composed of two major sections: the origins of the Tea Party movement and its impact on the GOP. My initial understanding of the Tea Party was that it was directly derived from the 2008 financial crisis, and I wanted to dive further into understanding if that was the case, or whether it was simply a factor in a larger reason. The second portion is its impact on the GOP. I understood that the Tea Party did have an impact on the Republican Party ideology, but I was interested in diving into the question deeper and really understanding the full impact of the movement on the GOP. Short-term causes. To many, the rise of the Tea Party was when CNBC's Rick Santelli called for a Chicago Tea Party to protest the federal government. This led to massive protests, specifically on tax day in 2009, where upwards of 800,000 people protested the federal government. What I was intrigued by is what really stemmed this massive following. I believed initially that the Tea Party movement was a direct response to the 2008 financial crisis and a reaction to the American government's actions. Two major pieces of legislation were passed following the 2008 crash, those being the American Recovery Act in 2008 and the Reinvestment Act in 2009, both of which were intended to bail out big businesses and citizens. There was outrage on the right as they viewed the government as corrupt and in bed with big business, this creating massive mistrust. The bailouts of 2008 were seen as promoting bad behavior, as said by Santelli, and created resentment towards the federal government. Examining a source from authors Fried and Harris has revealed that perhaps there were other short-term causes for the Tea Party movement, specifically the election of Barack Obama in 2008. Many on the right saw Obama as a socialist, threatening the principal view of the Tea Party being small government, whether it being Obamacare or fear of Obama supposedly stealing citizens' guns. His election created backlash on the right and is a principal reason for the rise of the Tea Party movement. Long-term causes. One thing my research has revealed is that the rise of the Tea Party runs deeper simply than the 2008 financial crisis. One common subject of the Tea Party is a hatred of Barack Obama. One source I found by academic David Lotto reveals an interesting idea that racism may be at the root of the Tea Party movement. Being that this was the first African American president, he suggests that there was definitely unease with some of the population. Lotto brings up a quote from New Yorker writer Jill Lepore stating, quote, "Whatever else had drawn people into the movement, a bailout, healthcare, taxes, Fox News, and above all, the economy. Some of it, for some people, was probably discomfort with the United States' first Black president because he was Black," end quote. Lotto traces back many origins for this theory and touches on the American Civil War. He suggests that perhaps being that the Civil War did little to solve racism, perhaps the Tea Party could be a display of rage from losing the Civil War, as many Southerners were embarrassed by defeat to the Union. Another theory comes from an article written by American journalist Stephen Hayes. His theory is that the Tea Party is simply a continuation of other right-wing movements and is not independent in itself. He notes that there were right-wing movements before, such as the Reagan Revolution in the late 70s and the Republican Revolution in the mid-90s. One interesting idea comes from a brief video I viewed. Jeff Nesbitt published a book entitled Poison Tea: How Big Oil and Big Tobacco Invented the Tea Party and Captured the GOP. This source was specifically interesting, as it had a very different take on the origins of the Tea Party. Nesbitt believes the movement was beginning much earlier than it is perceived, and states that it is the brainchild of the Koch brothers and tobacco giant Philip Morris. The purpose of its creation was to create anti-tax groups to fight battles for the powerful Koch brothers. The Koch brothers had ties to the organization as they provided massive sums of funding to Tea Party-endorsed candidates. Preliminary thesis. The preliminary thesis that I have created is as follows. Although it is clear that the 2008 financial crisis played a role in the creation of the Tea Party, it was simply a small factor, and the direct origins of the movement are far more complex and deep-rooted than it may be perceived. The Tea Party created divisive issues within the GOP, changing its ideology as it began to lean more right. This can be illustrated through Mitt Romney's effort to appease Tea Partiers in 2012, and may have hurt his chances of election by alienating centrists. The first component of my thesis is grounded in my preliminary findings thus far. I have concluded that it is simply impossible to attribute the 2008 financial crisis as the root cause of the Tea Party movement. From the research I have conducted so far, it is clear that the Tea Party pushed the GOP to the right. One specific piece of evidence I have chosen to emphasize this point is the 2012 election, and specifically the GOP's candidate Mitt Romney's connection with the Tea Party.